Okay, so now people who know me will be very surprised that I wrote this. See, I never ordinarily write, but I know I had a limited amount of time, so. For thousands of years, insightful people have known that human beings are natural learners. I remember when we first discovered that. I just want to see if you're paying attention. Okay. No, I'm not that old. But seriously, getting back to what I'm saying, several hundred years ago, actually in 1762, Rousseau described this approach in his book, The Emile. If we go back to the 1830s, Bronson Alcott practiced it in his little experimental school. However, he lost most of his students when he took in a young black girl. This was in the 1830s, okay? And soon was down to only 6 students, including his own daughter. That, you know who that was? It was Louisa May Alcott. And so she based Little Women, Little Men on her experiences with her father's school. More recently, we've had educational philosophers who have tried to bring us back to this reality that people are natural learners. These include Francisco Ferrer, who started the Escola Moderna, or modern school in Spain. How many people have heard of Francisco Ferrer? Huh? Yeah? Well, you should know about him. Very important. John Dewey, pioneer of progressive school concept, and Maria Montessori, who proclaimed that we must follow the child. We also had A.S. Neal, who you've heard about, who founded Summerhill School over 90 years ago, based on a belief that children will thrive in freedom and can become self-regulating. When the book Summerhill was published in 1960, this led to preschools and alternative schools being established. Thousands of them, actually, were started. Yet today, most of our schools and educational programs seem to be based on a completely opposite assumption, that children are naturally lazy and need to be forced to learn. I mean, that seems to be how the schools are based, right? Millions of children are subject to this approach that modern brain researchers say actually extinguishes their natural ability to learn. How did we go so wrong? Writers such as John Gatto say that this was no accident. He says that it was intentional and for control purposes that this system was created, and that it is actually doing its job. The job that it was intended to do. He says that the leaders who created it wanted people who would fit nicely into factory work, follow orders when given, and not make waves. You can get his point by knowing the titles of his books, such as Dumbing Us Down and Weapons of Mass Instruction. I love that title. By the way, I don't know if you know, John had a stroke last summer and is slowly recovering, and people want to know more about that, they can ask me. So maybe this approach worked for a while, more than 100 years ago, but in this new millennium, it isn't working at all. We now need more than ever creative, entrepreneurial students who can cope with and contribute positively to a world that is changing more and more rapidly. This is where we come in. This International Education, a Democratic Education Conference may stand as a watershed moment in which the people of Puerto Rico come to understand these issues and decide to make dramatic changes to the paradigm that toward the paradigm that children are natural learners. The IDEC, as you heard, started in 1993 when Jakob Hecht, founder of the Democratic School of IDEC, brought a few of us together who were involved with democratic education. We were there for a big conference actually on multicultural education. Little did we know that this gathering would lead to an annual event that would subsequently take place in England, Austria, Ukraine, Japan, New Zealand, the United States, India, Germany, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Korea, and now in Puerto Rico. Until now, the IDEC has mostly been a meeting of people actively involved with democratic education, although along the way it has had significant impact on the countries in which it was held. For example, having the IDEC at Summerhill in England and at the Stork Family School in Ukraine was able to help defend those schools when they were under attack by educational bureaucracies in their countries. When the IDEC was held in Germany in 2005, democratic education was illegal, and the practitioners were threatened with jail. Yet at last year's IDEC in Devon, England, more than a third of the participants were from new democratic schools in Germany. This is the kind of impact that we can have. And after organizing the IDEC in India in 2004, you've heard Amukta Mahapatra has organized a proliferation of learner-centered education through her state of Chennai, which is now spread to half the states in India, as she was telling me. Kageki, as he told you, has got a whole network of alternative and democratic schools going. And I don't think Jakob had time to tell you that not only did he help start 25 democratic schools in Israel, but now is changing entire cities. So there's a wave coming, as he says. It is not lost on us that this is the first time that a Ministry of Education decided to expose its key leaders, including superintendents and principals, to these concepts. And this may be the first time that IDEC has been heralded by a front-page banner headline, as it was earlier this week. One way that our nonprofit, the nonprofit that I started, the Alternative Education Resource Organization, has been helping keep the IDEC going is by creating and hosting the IDEC listserv, starting in 1996. What? Oh, that's okay. I can make it. I got this under control. We encourage everyone here who would like to be part of the IDEC dialogue to join this listserv. Just let us know. Arrow and Albany Free School co-hosted the IDEC in 2003 in New York. Since that time, we followed up with an annual Arrow conference, which will be in Portland, Oregon this coming August 1 to 5. Some of you have heard of Sir Kenneth Robinson, whose TED Talks about learner-centered education have been viewed by an estimated 200 million people in 150 countries. He's just agreed to be a keynoter at this Arrow conference. We heard yesterday. Arrow's mission is to help make learner-centered education possible for children wherever we can. Toward that end, we network many hundreds of democratic and learner-centered schools and programs around the world. We have programs to help people start new alternatives and have helped start over 50 new alternatives in the last few years. Some of the school starters are here, by the way. You may have met some of them. Some of our schools, we've been doing this for 22 years. We see the potential for this conference here in Puerto Rico to be the catalyst for systemic change to a real learner-centered approach that empowers students, parents, teachers to take control of their education as we move boldly into the new millennium. Thank you.